Hey guys, so I wanted to take a couple minutes this morning and talk about the shadow a little bit, because I'm pulling in these downloads and I've been trying to make sense of them, and it's just something I kind of like to just like vocalize, just like put it out there. It's just like food for thought, like add it to the conversation. I've been pulling in this message about needing to let the shadow do its job. That so often we're talking about doing shadow work, as if we're somehow going to like expel the shadow from us or expel the ego from us. And there's a difference between the shadow and the ego. They're two different things, right? Because your ego will puff you up and it will try and make you bigger than other people, right? When you're in moments where you're feeling less than. Your ego will also kind of make you kind of feel very intimidated by other things and try and make you small, right? But the shadow is something that's different. The shadow is really like your first line of defense, and it's not something that can get purged out of you. Like your shadow has a job to do. Normally when I talk about shadow and shadow work, I relate it to kind of like a dog, like a house pet, right? And it's something that you need to work on, you need to work with, you need to train it, because if you don't, then it's going to run around your house and it's going to, bark at all the neighbors, it's going to chew up your pillows, it's going to piss on your carpet. But if you're able to train it, it acts as an alert system. It lets you know if there's something around you that like you need to be aware of, and it also lets you know if there's something going on within you that you need to be aware of. If your ego is acting out of control, it's your shadow that lets you know that, not necessarily your higher self all of the time. And as we go in and we heal and we do this shadow work, our shadow gets to ascend with us, right? So often we think we have to reach these higher levels of consciousness in order to ascend and move into these new phases in our life that we're really hoping for. But it's actually not that, I think. It's actually about ascending the shadow and not ascending the higher self, because the higher self already is ascended. And this is the thing, it's that in these new seasons, awareness and mindfulness are like really at like the top of the to-do list, along with kind of self-care as well. And because we're so aware of ourselves, and because as gifted and intuitive people, we're always looking inside, right? What is this saying about me? What is the situation triggering in me? How is my ego getting out of pocket right now? That sometimes we completely forget the fact that there may be things externally to you that may be happening in situations, that may be happening with people that are not a reflection of what's going on within you. It's really a reflection of what's going on within them. And your shadow is trying to alert you to that as a defense mechanism, right? To kind of sound the alarm and go, hey, collective, like there's something going on here. But you in your conscious mind go, oh no, I'm just overreacting. Oh no, I'm taking it too personally. Like, oh no, like my ego's getting out of hand. And it actually irritates the shadow, because you're basically telling the shadow that it doesn't matter and its job is not important and it's doing a bad job at what it's intended to do. Think about your body. Do you ever notice how your body will know that it's sick, that there's something wrong with it before your mind does? Do you remember back in the day when we were allowed to have like common colds, or people got like the flu, like you were allowed to have sicknesses, and you oftentimes wouldn't realize you were sick for days, but your body would, right? Like you'd feel stuffed up, your head would hurt, you'd go, it's just my allergies, it's just stuffy in this room, I just need to dust, right? Like, I'm feeling a little achy, like I'm feeling a little fatigued, I probably just didn't sleep enough, I'm probably just dehydrated, right? And then, a few days later, a week later, next thing you know, you've got a full-blown cold, you've got the flu. It's like you're sick. Your body knows before your mind does, because your mind will try and quantify it somehow. And meanwhile, your body is letting you know a week ahead of time, hey, there's something wrong here. Hey, you need to check up on this. Hey, there's things you need to be doing, right, to make sure that this doesn't get worse. It reminds me of a few years ago, I had this awful pain, and some of you may have heard me tell this story before, but I had this awful pain in my stomach for days and days, and I was like, something I ate, like, maybe I'm getting my period, like, maybe I have a blockage in my solar plex, like, maybe I need to meditate, like, I'm just gonna really meditate on my solar plex chakra. What happened was that I ended up doubled over in the hospital, and I needed an appendicitis surgery at like midnight on a Sunday. They had to call in a very nice lady doctor and pull my appendix out of my belly button because I had a full-blown appendicitis. But I thought, no, it's me. It's something I'm doing. I have a blockage with my confidence. Like, no, I'm just eating too many spicy foods. No, like my body was trying to let me know that something was wrong. Like there was a disturbance in the force, but I was trying to internalize it too much. I was trying to tell myself that it was something I was doing, right? I was trying to use my higher self to quantify something that my physical body or my shadow was trying to tell me, right? And so a lot of that stuff is happening now. And something that I've been talking about in the last couple of weeks is not gaslighting yourself. Like there's so many people, places, and things in this world that are going to try and gaslight you, that are going to try and make you feel like your feelings don't matter, or you're overreacting, or you're just being paranoid, or you're just being suspicious, when in reality, it's your shadow trying to let you know, because your brain hasn't processed it yet about what's happening, right? That your shadow's trying to let you know, like, hey, there's something wrong here. Like there's something wrong maybe with the ego. There's something wrong with some of these people. Like there's something wrong in this situation. Like, why aren't you listening to me? And if you don't listen to the shadow, sooner or later, it will work in conjunction with your higher self to bring in a tower moment to prove to you why you should listen to it. It's the same thing as when I ignored the pain in my body. Sooner or later, I had a huge tower moment. I had to go in and have emergency surgery at the absolute last minute before my appendix burst because I wasn't listening to the messages before. Does that make sense? And this is the thing when it comes to other people, is that, again, we're always trying to operate from the higher self with complete disregard to the shadow, that your higher self is light. So your higher self sees light in everything. It sees it in everyone. So whenever it comes across a situation that's a little bit crooked, where it sees people acting out of pocket, your higher self sees the light in them. So it goes, hey, I see the light in them. I see this as an intentional, like, I see the goodness in this situation. Like, no judgment, it's okay. Whereas your shadow doesn't play that. Your higher self sees light in everyone and everything, but your shadow sees the darkness in other people because that's its job. And you have to let the shadow do its job, because your higher self will like to say, hey, you know, people are working their processes and there are things happening, and, you know, the things are always changing. We live in a realm of a billion, you know, possibilities and realities all of the time. But your shadow will go, yeah, but I'm looking in the dark corners and something's not adding up here. Something's not right here. So you have to listen to that, right? Like, I know for me personally, like, there are times when I don't have a problem with someone, like, at all. Like, I like that, like, there's not a problem, but they'll tell me, like, I'm picking up like a defensive energy off of you. And I'm like, well, that's strange, because I don't feel like I have to defend myself against you. Like, I don't feel like there's a problem. Like, I don't really understand where that's coming from. And so I have to go in and kind of check with the ego and go, are you good, girl? Like, my ego's like, I'm fine. Like, I don't see a problem. And what I had to realize, and this is something that kind of connected in my mind for me, is that that's my shadow, like, stepping up in front of me, right, as an alert system, because I may look at people and I may look at situations as my higher self, trying to fully embody that and go, no, I see the potential, like, no, I see the light, like, no, I see the goodness that, like, is in this person, that is in this situation, the good lessons to learn, the wisdom that could be had. But my shadow is up front going, yeah, but also I see the darkness here, like, I see some bullshit going on. And so the shadow is something that people will pick up on from you, and they'll interpret it as defensiveness, or they'll interpret it as boundaries, as certain things like this. And they might think that you're acting out of your ego, and you might not even realize that it's your shadow stepping to the forefront, connecting with their darkness. Your darkness is stepping in front of you, connecting to theirs, and in this, like, energetic playground, saying, hey, I see you. I know their higher self is looking at you, seeing all of the goodness, but I see this other part of you that they might not be able to quantify yet, right? That they're not quite tapping in yet. And so you need to be aware of that as we ascend, your shadow also has to ascend too. Let your shadow get its wings, because, again, we think that I have to meditate, I have to do this healing work, I have to do my shadow work, I have to do this, I have to meditate, I have to align in order to ascend to this higher level. Really, the thing that's keeping us from this higher level is that we're trying to leave the shadow behind, is that we're not ascending the shadow, is that we're not appreciating the job that the shadow does for us. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense to you, because that's, like, the big message that's, like, been coming in for me. There's something else. I need a minute. There's something else that they were telling me. I remember what it is. It's about your ancestors. and your spirit guides. So this is another thing as well that I've seen happen to me occasionally, is that people will be like, hey, like, Lauren, one of your goddesses showed up and they were like mean mugging me. And I was like, that's interesting. Okay. It's like a strange thing. And I was like, well, like, I did not send them. Like, part of appreciating the shadow is also appreciating your spirit guides, your ancestors, your guardians, right? Your spiritual support team, that they as well act as proponents of your shadow as well. They are a bit of a shield for you, that sometimes, and this goes both ways, is that sometimes, and listen, I work with magics and spiritual warfare is my specialty. And so occasionally you will see things like people operating with black magic and doing baneful crafts and doing stuff like that. It doesn't happen as often as you'd think, but it does happen. But a lot of times, people who find themselves feeling as though people are putting the evil eye on them, or people that are maybe like doing some kind of like works against them, what's actually happening is that like you moved crooked. And their angels, the deities that they venerate, that they work with, their ancestors, they're coming for your neck. It's not that person, because again, that person is over there probably going, it's my ego. Why do I feel defensive all of a sudden? Like, I feel like there's something going on. Like, it's probably just me. Like, I'm probably just being paranoid. I should meditate on it. I should really work on my self-love and my self-confidence. Like, they're over there, like, putting themselves through the ringer. And meanwhile, you think that they're mean mugging you, when actually it's their ancestors stepping to the forefront, kind of giving you a little bit of a shoulder check, right? And this is like the funniest thing as well. And I was talking to Michael about this, is that we have absolutely no control over our spirit guides, over our ancestors, over deities that you work with. We don't have any control over them. It's not like I can tell like Michael, like go sick them, like go do something. Like I cannot send Athena on errands. Like I do not tell Hecate what to do. Like they operate totally independently of me. Right? So sometimes, like, and this is for some, and I don't know who this is for, because I have some new people here. Hello, welcome. I'm very grateful to have you, but that you may really feel like someone's like mean mugging you, when what you don't realize is their shadow, their darkness is recognizing like darkness that is going on in you. But again, they're not able to quantify it. So the shadow rings the alarm up to the ancestors, and then the ancestors step in front of them, right? The ancestors step in front of the shadow's in front of you, and then they deal with you on behalf of that person who's sitting there trying to meditate on their self-esteem. So like these are things that like we need to be aware of moving into these new seasons. And thank you for reminding me. And so and this is another thing. So a lot of you guys are getting these messages, and this is kind of all across the board about like your physical health, like making sure that you're rested. A lot of us have been guided to detox, go on cleanses, to fast, to purge, to eat lighter, like to do all of this stuff. And again, in our quantified minds, we think that we're doing it so that way we can ascend to higher levels, but it's not. It is, but it's not. It's because of gut health. It's that gut instinct. That's like that sacral, that like, that is where the shadow lives. Your higher self lives like in your third eye, but the shadow like lives in the sacral. It's that gut instinct. And if you go to any doctor, they'll tell you gut health, that the health that's in your gut affects the health across your entire body, right? That the gut gives messages to the brain about things that are going on in the body. And so when you're being told to cleanse, to fast, to purge, to go on a detox, to do all this stuff, it's not so that way your crown, so that way your third eye can ascend to these higher levels. That's not what it is at all. It's because it's trying to allow you to hear the shadow better. The shadow is sick of being ignored and discounted as being suspicious and paranoid. Like the shadow doesn't know what it's doing. You haven't been doing shadow work for years, just to discount the work of the shadow. We do shadow work so that way the shadow can work for us as part of the team, and it can ascend with us, because we can't go without the shadow. Same thing, you need your masculine, your feminine, your inner child, you need your higher self. The shadow comes too, no child left behind. And so when we're getting these messages to like clean up our act physically, it's not to expand the crown, it's not to expand the third eye from what I'm understanding, it's to clean out the gut so you can hear that gut instinct, so you can hear the shadow better. So when people, places, and things come into your environment that seem a little crooked, you don't go in and start gaslighting yourself and tell you that that's not happening, that you're overreacting, that your ego is getting out of control. That's not what it is, right? And so again, a lot of this comes down to mindfulness and discernment, that a lot of times like you're completely unaware of all of this stuff happening. When you're getting those messages like, don't worry about it, like the universe will take care of it, just like take the high road. A lot of times it's so that way you can do this work that you're doing, and the shadow is acting as a barrier between you and people, places, and things, between experiences. It's so your ancestors can step in front of you and handle people, places, and things on behalf of you, so that way you can keep your karma clear. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense, because that's like this, like, and again, it's like this string of downloads that have been coming in over like the past few days as well. And I've kind of been trying to piece them together like this little puzzle, and it all comes down to like respecting the shadow, the revolution of the shadow, that you've done so much shadow work, and it's not something that ever ends, but it's something that we're really moving into a time in these new seasons that you have to allow the shadow to work for you. You can't be gaslighting yourself, right? And if someone's like picking up like a funny energy from you, but you're not like feeling some kind of way about a person, it's likely that the shadow is trying to alert you to something going on in the environment that your mind, that your consciousness hasn't picked up on yet. Again, it's the same thing as if you ignore a download, right? Or your crown feels all foggy and you're not able, like you don't have the clarity, things will come through your body. All of a sudden your lower back will stop hurting, or it'll start hurting, right? Because you have a blockage in your root chakra, because your brain couldn't quantify, hey, I'm dealing with abandonment issues or like rejection issues or something like that right now. I'm trying to control the situation too much. It'll come in, but you won't be able to discern it. So it'll move through your body. And so that's a lot of the stuff that's been happening right now, is that the shadow is trying to alert you to certain things, and it's encouraging you to trust what it's saying, that it is a member of the team, like it is trying to work for you, but it can't do the best job that it can unless you respect it, unless you acknowledge it, right? Let the shadow do its job, and be mindful, like when you're out here, like doing your thing, that you may come across other people's shadows, right? That you may come across other people's ancestors, and they may come across yours, which is oftentimes why you get the message of like, don't worry about it, just like stay focused and do your thing, like we'll take care of it. It's because of that, because your spiritual support team, the divine, wants you to stay focused on what you're doing on. And this is the whole point of integration, integrating the masculine and the feminine, integrating the higher self and the shadow, releasing the inner child, all of that stuff all together. This is what true integration is. It's the revolution of the shadow, so that way you can keep your hands kind of free of any negative karma, and your shadow can go out there and it can meet other people's darknesses, right? And let them know where the boundary is. And your ancestors can step in front of them and handle stuff. So that's why it's like, it's important to be mindful, right? To not be gaslighting yourself, to not always assume that it's something that you're doing wrong, and to not reject the darkness that lives in you, because it's there for a reason. You would be incredibly one-dimensional without it. And to have more reverence and respect for your ancestors, your angels, your guides, who are taking hits for you on a daily basis, just so that way, like, you can go over there and like meditate, right? And like do your thing, and to put respect on the shadow, because it's allowed you to survive so many things. So it's like the higher self is great, but don't favor it in lieu of abandoning the shadow, which has made it able for you to survive in a very chaotic world and through a very tumultuous process. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So I hope any of this made sense to you. But these are just, again, like these shadow downloads that I've been like pulling in a lot, and I'm really growing in a lot of respect for my shadow. And I'm growing a lot of respect and appreciation for like the inner darkness that like is within me too, because I'm multidimensional. I'm not just light. I have a lot of darkness in me too. I need it, right? Spiritual warfare is my specialty. So if I was all love and light, there's no way I could go down to the pits of hell and pull some of you guys out of there. There's no way. And so there needs to be a greater sense of reverence and respect for that. And I think that by thinking of it, a little food for thought, right? Going back to the cleansing download, but taking it as a little bit of food for thought, it may actually help a lot of us move like much more effectively and be able to adjust more efficiently in these new places and these new spaces that I know we all feel like we're going into. So that's what I got. I'm gonna go back inside. I got some sessions to do. I got some things, but I love you guys very much. I hope this, ouch. Oh, sitting on the ground as a 30-year-old. But I love you guys. I really do hope that this helps you. If it doesn't resonate, if this doesn't make sense, like you just throw it away. I'm just one person in a sea of 8 billion. So you just toss it. But, I feel like it's important to talk about, right? So this is what I got. I'll be out. I love you. I'll see you later. Bye.